Shalom Aleichem, and welcome everybody as we Baruch Hashem have another opportunity to prepare for Shabbat together. This week being Shabbat Parshat Lecha. To be honest, Parshat Lecha, every parsha is my favorite, but this is one of my favorite parshas. Right? Chedush HaRim would say about this parsha. What did Chedush HaRim say about this parsha? He said, Baruch Hashem, we've come to Parshas Lecha. Now we have Yidden in the parsha. Now we have Jews in the parsha. It's lichtig. It's light now. Because up until now, you had Parshas Bereshis, and right away, Adam made a sin, and then Cain and Hevel, there's so much Averot going on. And then in Parshas Noah, all this punishment, the Mabul. And now comes the generations of Torah, comes Avraham Avinu, now becomes a light, a parsha of light, a parsha of so much going on. Yiddishkeit starts. That's right. Judaism begins in this week's Parashat Lech Lecha. There's a story told about the Golem of Prague. Everybody knows about the Golem. He wasn't so bright. And one day they told the Golem, go to the sea, and they gave him this big bag. And they told him, go to the sea and fill it up with fish. And the Golem was huge. So he walked into the sea. The water was up to his knees. And he's trying to catch the fish with his hands and put it in the bag. And he's at this for hours and hours. And the people are waiting for him to come back. And they see he's not coming back. So one of the people go to him. One of the people from the city come out. And they go to the sea where the Golem is. And they see the Golem is putting the fish. And they see his bag is halfway full. And they tell him, hello, we got to go. It's late. We got to go back home. And the Golem he points to his bag. And he shows it's only halfway. So you told me to fill it up. So they tell him, no, it's enough. It's enough fish. So what does he do? He takes the whole bag and throws it back in. Basically, he thought, like a lot of people think, if I can do it all the way, then I'll do it. And if I can't do it all the way, then I won't do it. But that's a huge mistake. Pirkei Avot tells us as follows: Lo alecha melacha ligmar. The job is not for you to complete. V'lo ata ben chorim, but you're not free to go away from the job. You know how much this goes? Not only for mitzvot, that a person should try to do the mitzvah as much as he can. Fill up your bag halfway with fish. Don't just throw it out saying, oh, you don't need it anymore? You don't need it? You don't want the bag full? Let me throw the whole thing out. It also applies to a certain sense, to a certain degree, when it comes to Averot. There's a Maisa that's told over, Rabbi Israel Tauber, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, once brought a young man who was being a Hozer B'tshuva. He was 25 years old or so, and he was coming to Reb Chaim Kanevsky with the Shaila. Zecher Tzadik Lebracha. And they asked Reb Chaim Kanevsky, they told him, this boy, this Bahur, he's coming back to Judaism. And he wants to do everything right. But it's very hard for him to keep Shabbat. Why? He doesn't want to be Mehalel Shabbat, but he wants to smoke. It's very hard for him to stop smoking. He needs to smoke on Shabbat. What should he do? He cannot not smoke. He needs it. Right now, at this point, he's not up to it yet. The story goes, the Maisa goes, Reb Chaim took this question very seriously. And after a few minutes, Reb Chaim told his boy, he told this young man, he said, you should know, lighting up a cigarette is an Avera, but shutting off a cigarette is also an Avera. He said, if you cannot stop yourself from smoking on Shabbat, we're not sanctioning it, we're not saying it's okay to smoke, but if you're smoking on Shabbat, at least do not put out the cigarette at the end. At least don't do that Avera. And the Reb Chaim gave him a bracha to keep Shabbat completely, not to smoke on Shabbat. And that first Shabbat after Reb Chaim told him, he smoked, and he didn't put out the cigarette. Kept Shabbat to that degree. Till eventually, the road was a little bit long. But today, Shomer Torah mitzvot completely. But this is the concept here. What's the concept? The concept is, Lech Lecha Me'artzecha. Come out from your land. What does this mean? People are stuck in their ways. Right? You have to pay attention to the pasuk. Lech lecha ma'aretzecha. How does the pasuk continue? No. And then it says first from your land, then from your father's house. But you think about it, where do you leave first? Do you leave your house first or your land first?
House.
So why does it say leave your land first? And then it says leave your house? Right? What does it say in pasuk? Where does it say? Lech lecha me'artzecha, leave your land. U'milatecha, your birthplace of Beis Avicha. If anything, I leave my house first, then my city where I live, and then the country where I live. The pasuk goes backwards because it's not what it's talking about. What it's talking about is the person has to leave his mindset. The person has to leave the way he thinks. People think that either I'm doing it all the way or no way. But the truth is, a person has to do his job as much as he can. In this week's Parsha later on, Hashem tells Avram Avinu, you're going to have a lot of children. It's going to be, the whole world's going to be covered by them. And it says in the pasuk, what should Avram Avinu do? Hashem wants to show him how many children he's going to have. So it says in pasuk 15:5, what does it say? Hashem took him outside and said to him, Habeit no hashemayim, look up in the sky. Usfor kochavim, and count the stars. Im tuchal uspor otam. Can you count them? Is it possible to count them? Is it possible to count them? Vayomer lo ko yezarecha. And then he said, this is how your children are going to be. First of all, the pasuk never says Avram counted it. All the pasuk says is, Avram, go out and count. And can you count it? Look at the sky. Look at the stars. Is it possible to count? That will be your children. So Rav Meir Shapiro says, imagine I come to you today and I tell you, go count the stars. Or I tell you, go count the sands in Rockaway Beach. Go count it. Well, you gonna listen to me? You're gonna try? You're gonna even try? You're not gonna even try. You're gonna say it's impossible, right? You can't do it. And yet, what did Avram Avinu do? Avram Avinu came out and he started to look. Hashem said, "Beit now Shemayim, usvar kochavim tuchal uspor otam." Avram Avinu came out to try to do the impossible. He tried to count what's impossible to count. And then what does Hashem tell him? That's going to be your children. The Jewish people are going to be people who continue to do things that seem impossible, but they get it done. I mean, look throughout history. Right? Look throughout history. I'm going to read to you right now. It's a famous statement by one of the most prolific authors that we have in the secular world, Mark Twain. His real name is Samuel Clemens. This is what he writes about the Jews. Just think about what he's writing as a guy, and what he's writing about the Jews, which is applicable today. He said, if the statistics are right, the Jews are about 1% of the human race. About 1%. They should be like, he says, it suggests the nebulous dim puff of star dust lost in the blaze of the Milky Way. They shouldn't properly, the Jew ought hardly to be heard of. You should never even hear about the Jew. Shouldn't be in the news. There should be nothing about them. But he is heard of, has always been heard of. He is prominent on the planet as any other people. And his commercial importance is out of proportion to the smallness of his bulk. The whole business world relies on Jews. He contributes to the world's list of great names in literature, science, art, music, finance, medicine, abstruse learning. He had a marvelous fight in this world, in all the ages. And the Jew has always done it with his hands tied behind him. The Egyptian, the Babylonian, the Persians, they rose, they filled the planet with sound and splendor, and then they faded away and passed away. The Greek and the Romans followed. They made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up, held their torch high for a time, but have burnt out, and they sit in the twilight now, or have vanished. The Jew, continues writing, Mark Twain, the Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew. All the forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? Asks Mark Twain. You know, there was the famous King Louis of, it's Louis in English, but in French they say King Louis, XIV, right? So he was the 14th, I believe that's correct. He built the Versailles Palace. One day, he tells to his philosopher that was in this kingdom, he says to me, prove to me that there's a supernatural, that there's more than Teva, there's more than nature in the world. Prove to me there's more than nature, there's something supernatural. And what did the philosopher say to him? The Jews. He said, you want to know that there's something supernatural in this world? You look at the Jews. That's it. This is the Pasuk. The Pasuk says, come out and count the stars. It's impossible to count. Avraham Avinu, that's your children. Impossible to count. Right? The OU, a couple years back, did a research study, which similarly Rabbi Yoel Gold did also this past Tisha B'Av. He put it on his video. He went around asking Goyim in the world, all different parts of the world, how many Jews are there in the world? And everyone thinks, all the Goyim, majority of the Goyim think that 30% of the world, if not 50% of the world, are Jewish. And yet the truth is, Jews are less than 1% of the world population. And yet, we're standing, everyone's talking about us. From the basketball players, to the singers, to this, to that. Nowhere can he escape. Everyone knows a Jew. Rav Mordechai Kamenetsky in his Sefer here writes that there was, in the United States, they were having the United States Department of Defense. They were having a meeting about the latest tanks and bombs and weapons that they're buying and using in the military. And there was a Jew that worked there, a religious Jew named Sam Goldish. And he lived in Oklahoma, and he was there in this department. And as he was walking around, one of the strings from his tzitzit came out of his shirt. And all of a sudden, one of the people saw that there, and they said, "What's this?" And now you can't just tuck it back in. You have to explain it. So he went around and he said, well, it says in the Torah and the Bible, and he quotes the verses. You know, he's a little bit learned and he knows where it is. Right? And then all of a sudden, what happens? Christians say, nah, can't be. Where does it say it? So he says in Numbers, right? In the book of Numbers, in Bamidbar. So they pull out a King James Bible. Right there, and they're talking about business, the military tactics and strategies. All of a sudden, everything stops, and they pull out a King James Bible, and everybody now is starting to talk. Do the Jews wear tzitzit? Do they not wear tzitzit? All of a sudden, a military meeting turned into a discussion about Jews. Do they wear tzitzit? Do they wear tzitzit? Does it say it in the Bible? Doesn't it say it in the Bible? How is this possible? It's possible because Avraham Avinu did the impossible. And Maseh Avot Siman Lebanim. And that's what the Pasuk says. That's what it says. V'yomer lo ko yeh zarecha. That will be your children. Doing the impossible. Living the impossible. Rabbi Frand, yourself a French Shlita. 100%, because we do the impossible. I tell you, when I came to work in my current job, the first day I came, I had 1.5 million questions about what it means to be a Jew. What about the strings I saw somewhere? Why some wear these fur hats? Why some have side locks? Why some have like this? Why have like that? What about the wigs? What about this? What about that? So much so that they kept asking me so many questions the first week. My boss decided that I should give like an hour lecture about what it means to be Jewish. So here I am in a new place, giving a lecture of what it means to be Jewish. It dealt with kashrut, Shabbat, Yom Tov. I basically said Shabbat, Yom Tov, we can't work, so don't expect us to. And I gave all these things. But you think about it, some guy comes in, okay, let him get to work. No, everybody's nispal, everybody's amazed by it. That is the secret of a Jew, that we can do the impossible. But it's even more. Listen to this. Once a blind Jew, an elderly blind man, came to Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer, Zecha Tzadik Lebracha, and he brought Sfarim, 2 books, 2 volumes of a handwritten, his own Sfarim. And he said to Rav Isser Zalman, he said to him, you see these books? And he opens up to the last page and says, this is the last Chidushei Torah that I ever wrote. And Rav Isser Zalman said, what do you mean? He said, when I was younger, I would always write down my Chidushei Torah. As our Chachamim tell us to do that. Right? You should have a pen, should be your friend. Always write down everything. All the Chidushim you come up with. And he said, but I was getting older and I was getting tired. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I was getting older. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to write anymore with so much this, that. I'm just going to write briefly. And he said, the next day I woke up and I was blind. And I couldn't see. So I went to the doctors. The mind says I went to the doctors. I go to the doctors, they look at my eyes, and they say, we can't believe that yesterday you were able to see. It says the damage in your eyes, you shouldn't have been able to see for the past 20 years. You should have been blind. My friend says, the doctors didn't realize, couldn't understand how he had, but we know how. Because he was doing the impossible. He was writing Chidushei Torah. He was using his facilities to do the right things. If you would have gone to the doctor 20 years ago, they would have said you can't see anymore. But what happened? He continued to do the impossible. When a person does the impossible, Hashem comes to him and helps him. Because that's what Hashem told Abraham Avinu. That will be your children. Doing the impossible. People think emunah, bitachon, means that when I'm in a hard place or something bad is happening, now I'm going to believe Hashem, and Hashem's going to get me out of this. That's not what emunah bitachon means. Bitachon means I believe everything Hashem does is great for me. Right? Even if something bad happens, I believe that's from Hashem and it's good. This interplays with what we're saying over here. Why? What are we saying? We're saying that we can do the impossible because that's what Hashem gives us. That's Jewish people. How do we do the impossible? Because Hashem is with us. Listen to this amazing story. There was a Jew who lived in Belarus, Reb Lipa. He was a rich man, very well-to-do, and he had very good midot. He was midot tovot, he was a Baal midot, very good character traits. One day he goes to the shoemaker to fix his shoe. He gives his shoe to the shoemaker. He comes to pick it up. He pays the money. He walks out, puts on the new shoes, and he sees it's a bad job. Not a good job. So he goes back inside, and he tells the shoemaker, he says, listen, I gave you my shoes. Look at the stitches, nothing good. And the shoemaker, who's also a Jew, says to him, Reb Lipa, what do you want from me? He says, I have no money. I'm poor. I have no food. I have 8 daughters at home I need to marry, and I can't marry them off. My work shows my pain. I'm sorry. So Reb Lipa listened to him, and Reb Lipa said to him, come with me, I'm going to help you. He takes him to his house. He opens the safe, and he takes out a gold brick. And he says to his shoemaker, he says, listen, this brick is yours. If you ever need some money, just cut a slice off of gold and you'll be good. The shoemaker was thanking him. He comes home so happy. He goes to work the next day. With happiness, he starts to work. People see the good craftsmanship that he has, and his store starts to get flooded. People coming in, there's no lines waiting months to get the stuff done. He becomes a wealthy man. Over some time, he became very wealthy. And one day, he's walking in the marketplace, and he sees another Jew. Very sad. He says, "What's going on?" He says, "I'm poor. Oh, this, that." He says to him, "You know what? A couple of years ago, a very generous Jew by the name of Reb Lecha helped me out. Today I'm going to help you. Come with me." And he took this other poor man, he walks him to his house, and he takes the brick. He said, "You see this gold brick? Reb Lecha gave it to me, and since then, I never had to use it, but since then, everything went better. Take this brick, and like he told me, if you need to use it, cut a slice off, and you'll have enough money." This poor guy takes it and says, "Thank you." As soon as he gets home, he takes a hammer and he starts to cut up the brick. And as he's cutting the brick, he sees that the brick was only covered outside in gold, and the whole inside was cheap metal. So he takes this, runs back to this shoemaker's house, and he says, "You tricked me! You told me here's gold! You told me I can cut it and use it! And there's nothing there! It's cheap gold! There's cheap metal covered by a little layer of gold!" The shoemaker looks at it and he says, "Wow, it's so interesting. All these years that I had it, I never used it. It made me happy, and I became rich through my happiness." He says, "You, on the other hand, one day had it, and you're poor, and you're still poor." You see, Rabotai, it's the belief that Hashem could help us, that Hashem is helping us, Hashem is with us all times, that you can reach the impossible. Pasmasalo, you have it, you feel it's there, you know Hashem is with you. You can do the impossible. But, Chas v'sholom, a person starts testing, I don't know if Hashem's with me. I don't know if He's there. I have to look, I have to check, I have to this, I have to that. Then he can never do anything. He can never do the impossible. That's what's going on in this week's Parsha. Avram Avinu, look outside, count the stars. It's impossible. Im tuchal esporotam. Vayomer lo ko yezarech. That will be your children, doing the impossible because they believe Hashem. They know Hashem. They be talking in Hashem. They can always do the impossible. That is our first lesson on this week's parasha. Let's move on to another lesson from this parasha. It says, Lech Lecha, Artzecha. And Rashi says, why are they leaving? What's the point? Lech Lecha, go for yourself, Lahanatcha ultovatcha, for your pleasure and for your benefit. Avraham Avinu leaving his hometown, his country, his father's house was for his good. Now, we have to stop and think for 1 second here. Who was Avraham Avinu? Avraham Avinu, Ish Hesed, the man of Hesed. What did he do? When he heard from Noach, right, he heard from Shem, had Noach would feed all the animals in the Teva, and B'schut Zes, because of that, they were saved. Avraham Avinu went and he built an eshel. He built a hotel. People came, slept, ate, everything. He said, if you do chesed for animals, you can survive. If you do chesed for people, how much more? Avraham Avinu, an ish chesed, a man who helped people when they're on the go. He himself turns out to be a wanderer. He turns out a person with no house. How is that fair? How could it be the person who gives everybody a home, person who gives everybody a bed, person who gives everybody food and drink, ends up on the road with nothing? How could it be any fair? There's a very, very special story that happened with the Chernobyl Rebbe, Rav Nochem Chernobyl, also known as the Me'or Einayim. The Me'or Einayim, the Chernobyl Rebbe of Nochem, he was very into the mitzvah of Pidyon Shavuim, of redeeming people who were in jail. And one day he collected a lot of money to help the Jews who were sitting in jail. And as he was walking around, somehow the Goyim found out about the lot of money he had, and the police came and arrested him. And they said he must have stolen the money. And they threw him into prison. And the Hasidim were able to help him to get from one place in the prison to another place, from the dungeon to like the second floor, to make it a little bit more bearable. And he was sitting in prison and he was thinking, how can it be? I'm the one who saves people from prison. I paid the ransom to get other Jews out. And I myself are sitting there. The way Rav Weinberg here brings the story, as he was sitting in his prison cell, he heard a woman's voice through the window. And she said, Reb Nachum. He looks out the window. An older lady is there. And she says to him, can I tell you a vart? Can I tell you Dvar Torah on this week's Seder Parshat Lecha? He's sitting in jail. He's going to say no? He says, of course. She says, we know Rashi says, go for yourself, that Hashem was telling Abraham he should travel for his own benefit. Why was it considered one of his tests if it's for his own benefit? If you're getting rewarded for it, how is it a test? The woman then answered her own question. She said it was a test because Abraham's mission in life was to provide for people. For those who were travelers, those who were homeless. Hashem wanted Abraham to truly know the pain of being a traveler. Hashem wanted Abraham, he said, you're going to be a man of chesed who's going to help people who are on the road. I want you to know what it's like to be on the road. To know that a traveler, for hours online, for hours on the road, no food, no drink, no stop. If you go through that experience, Abraham, then you'll be able to help others better. The story goes that Reb Nachum of Chernobyl at that point realizes that this woman is actually Rachel Imenu, whose yahrzeit is this Shabbat. That she came to him. She herself knows Galut because she's buried on the road. And she said to Reb Nachum, this is why you're in jail now. You're in here right now because you're always involved in freeing prisoners. But Hashem wants you to know what it feels like to be a prisoner. That's why you're in prison right now. So when you come to save them, you'll know what they really need. And you'll know how fast to act. You have to have had that feeling as well. This is a very big yesod. Why is this such an important yesod? I will tell you. A lot of times people in life go through difficulties and challenges. And they say, why me? Hashem, why are you picking on me? And some people answer, it's a Gilgul, right? The Ramban, you, maybe in your previous life, this, that. Some say maybe you need a tikkun. There's many reasons. And we're not to say that we know any reasons. Kadosh Baruch Hu has his reasons. Hashem has his reasons for everything. But I think this teaches us another reason. You know what the reason is? So that you would be able to help someone else out when they go through something similar. You know, when I was working as a nurse at Maimonides and we had patients come in, young patients, older patients, they got strokes. And all of a sudden they can't move half their body. They can't eat and they put tubes and stuff in them. And I remember once telling somebody, oh, I feel so bad for you. And the person says, you don't know anything that you're talking about. I said, what do you mean? He says, is that your father? Is that your mother? Then you have no idea how I'm feeling. And that's why we were trained to then say what? I can't imagine what you're going through. Because you have no idea what the other person's going through. But if a person went through it, then they're able to say, I know exactly what you're going through. There are some teachers you find in the school systems, amazing, amazing teachers. And you find out when they were students in the yeshiva, they didn't have such good rebbeim. Or they themselves weren't so good. How did they become so great? They realized what was missing. They realized what they needed. They realized what a difficult boy is going through. And now they're able to help that other person through. This is another way to look at life's challenges. That you're going through it in order to understand someone else later on. That was Avraham Avinu. He went through this difficulty to know what it means to be a traveler, how to provide for them. Rav Nachum in Chernobyl went through this to be sitting in jail to know how to provide for somebody. We too have to be able to understand this and do this. We've all gone through some challenges. If we understand what someone went through, you could tell them we went through the same thing. And a lot of times when a person hears someone else went through the same thing, already they become more calm. I'm not in my own boat. Right? I'm not all alone. Someone's went through this. That's why it's important to talk. Important to help people. And if you don't know the person's going through, try to either help them with someone who can, or tell them you really don't know, but you want to be there for them. This is another very important lesson that we learned from this week's Parshat. Rabotai, that now leads us to our final lesson from this week's Parshat. This one, some of you may remember it. If you do, good. Then it's a chazarah for you to remember it even better. And if not, you're learning it now. Rav Shalom Shadron, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, would say over this mashal. Imagine you see a man, he's wrapped in talit and tefillin. He's dressed, he has his talit and tefillin on. And he's running down the street with his siddur in his hand. And the people on the road, seeing him, tell each other, do you know where he's going? And everyone says, oh, we know exactly where he's going. He's going to kill somebody, and he's going to do the sin of Gilu Arayot. Everyone would say, what do you mean? Why would you think that? Why would you think that? The guy's in his talis and tefillin. He's going to go kill somebody? He's going to go be with someone he's not allowed to? Yet, in this week's parasha, we have as follows. It says that Avraham Avinu gets a message that what? Vayavo palit vayegel Avraham Avinu. Og comes and tells Avraham Avinu, Lot is captured. He's captured. Now, if I tell you, someone came to tell you something happened, what would you say? The guy came to tell me this. Tell me the news. I should go, maybe Avraham should go save him. By the way, again, you see Avraham doing the impossible. He goes with one person, 318, and he goes to fight the 4 kings who just won the 5 kings, and he goes to fight them. Again, doing the impossible. That's Avraham. That's from the beginning. But here, the Og comes and tells him, your nephew has been captured. And what did Chazal say? What did Chachamim say? Why did Og come to tell him? Og came to tell him because Og wanted Avraham to die in battle and for him to marry Sarah. Really? Og is just coming to say the news. Go help Lot. Or he's just spreading the latest news. No, Chazal say he wants to marry Sarah. He wants to be with Sarah. He wants Avram to die. Soon we're going to have the parasha when Yaakov goes to Lavan.
Why Og did not go with him to help?
He wanted to marry Sarah. He didn't want to die. Right? So, listen to this. Yaakov goes to Lavan, right? And it says there, Vayaratz likorto, that Lavan sees him and he starts running after him. Vaychabeklo, and he hugs him. Vaynasheklo, he kisses him. Vayerel beto, and he brings him into his house. So, Lavan is who to Yaakov before he's married to his daughters? It's his uncle, right? His mother's brother. So, it's a family reunion. Lavan sees his nephew. He runs to him. He hugs him. He kisses him. Brings him into his house. No. Chazal tells us that's not what happened. Vayiratz Likroto. He ran toward him. He thought Yaakov had a lot of money on him. So he comes for the money. He doesn't see it. So what happens? Vayichabek. So he hugs him. He starts patting him down. No, where's the money? Doesn't see anything on him. So he thinks it's inside his mouth. So, he kisses him. French kisses him. Puts his tongue inside to feel the teeth. Maybe he's hiding the diamonds in there, the pearls in there. Why did Chazal do this? Why did Chazal, why did they come and say that this family reunion was really Lavan wanting to find the money? And by Be'er Beto, he brought him into his house to interrogate him, to say, where's the money? Tell me where it is. Another episode. Paro has a dream. 7 cows, this, that, there's grains, that. He doesn't know what's going on. He's very confused. He's asking people, can we interpret it? Everybody's coming, daughter, Shmona is giving all these face interpretations. He says no. So finally, Sarah Mashkin, the cupbearer, comes and says, I remember my sin. He says Paro was angry. He put me in prison. And there was a young boy, and he explained it to us. Our dream. We had a dream, and he explained it like he said it happened. You know what the Midrash and Bereshit Rabbah says? That this man, this Sarah Mashkin, who told Paro about Yosef, he didn't want to say that Yosef. But why did he say it? Why did he say it? The Midrash Rabbah writes, because he saw how troubled Paro was. He said Paro's blood pressure is going high. Paro's not eating, not drinking. Paro's going to die. And if Paro dies, I'm out of a job. I'm not going to be the Sarah Mashkin anymore. So in order to keep my job, not in order to help Paro, not in order to keep his promise to Yosef that he's going to remember him. No. In order to keep his own job, he tells Paro, let me tell you what happened. Why did the Chachamim do this? Why did the Midrash say this? He wanted to help Paro, or he wanted to keep his promise to Yosef. No, for himself. Says Rav Yaakov Galinsky, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha. There's a pasuk in Eov that says, Ayir Pera Adam Yivaleid. That a person is born a wild donkey. When a person is born, he's a donkey. Let's say you're walking down the road. I mean, today you don't have donkeys, but imagine you're walking down the road and there's donkeys. And all of a sudden the donkey makes a turn. He's going off the road. You think he's stopping to daven mincha? You think he's stopping to say tehillim? What do you think he's stopping for? To do chesed? What is he doing? He probably saw something to eat. Hashem Shadron says that that's what people are. People are donkeys when they're born. They're made out of adamah. They're made out of earth. And Hashem put into them a neshama. But you have to have Torah to have that neshama. You have to have Torah to make the neshama glow and make it become prominent in the body, in the person. Because otherwise, if you don't learn Torah, you're a donkey. And what does a donkey do? Every single creature on earth, including humans, are self-centered. They're thinking about themselves. That's what people are. Think of a baby. It's all about them. They don't care that you had a long day at work. They don't care that you're not feeling well. They need a bottle. They need to get changed. They want you to hold them. That's it. If a person doesn't learn Musar, and if a person doesn't have Torah, then you know for sure that his actions are self-centered. It's about him. When Og is coming, he's coming for himself. Why? Because he's self-centered. He's a human creature. He's a donkey. When Lavan comes, he doesn't learn Torah. He doesn't have Musar. So he's about himself. My money. And when it's the Sarah Mashkin doesn't learn Musar, it's about his own job. His own job security. This is so important for us. That's what Chazal says. Chazal say what? What's really happening here? It can't be he's doing it for a good reason. He doesn't learn Musar. Doesn't have Torah. You know, it was a Jew that once came to one of the Chachamim right before the Holocaust, right before World War II, and he said the Germans are so nice. Every time they say something, they say, "Is it not so?" I don't remember how to say it in the Yiddish, in German expression, but they would say, "Is it not so? Is it not so? Oh, it's so beautiful outside. Is it not?" That's the way they would talk, very politely, always asking for your opinion. And this man survived the war. And he came out, he was missing a few fingers. And he came back to this rabbi, he said, "Rabbi, you were right. You said they cannot be good if they don't learn Torah. Because every time they chopped off a finger of mine, they kept saying, 'Oh, it must hurt.' Is it not? Is it not hurting when I cut it?" And they kept using such nice expressions while they're killing me. It cannot be that someone who doesn't have Torah can be doing the right thing. You have to be able to have Musar. You have to know what the Torah says to do. Then, maybe, we can think you're doing the right thing. So someone asked Rav Shalom Shadron. Okay, but that's Oig. Yeah, and that's Lavan. And that's Sarah Mashkin. And the bad goyim. Can it be everyone's like that? We're Jews. So Shalom Shadron said, our final mashal for this week, Shalom Shadron says, there was once a very famous doctor, and he was giving a lecture in the university, and a tourist came to the city and he saw it and he asked the permission to come in, and he came and he sat in the lecture. He heard about this famous doctor, and this famous doctor had a cadaver, right? He had this dead body that was donated to science. And the doctor started to do an autopsy, and he started to cut it open, and he's showing this the future doctors, this is a vein, and he starts explaining it. So the tourist is watching this the whole time, and as it's ending, he raises his hand and he says, "Can I ask a question?" So the doctor says, "Sure." He says, "Where is this body from?" He says, he takes the paper, he looks at it. "This man was donated from Indonesia." So the tourist raises his hand again. He says, doctor says, "Yes." He says, "What do I care about the man from Indonesia? Why are you showing me his vein? What does that have to do with me? Why are you teaching all these doctors about one man from Indonesia, about his veins, about his knee, about his this?" And you can imagine the whole lecture hall was laughing. Until finally, one of the students got up and said, "You have to understand, sir, that everyone in the world has the same veins. They have the same bones, in the same places, and in the same way." Rav Shalom Shadron said, if Chazal tell us that this nature exists in Og, and in Lavan, and in Sahar Mashkin, and everyone else who's not learning Torah, then you should know it could exist in us as well if we're not following the right path. We're not learning Musar. We're not doing the right things. Because in man was created from the ground and from the Shamayim. Hashem gave him the Shema from his throne. Hashem blew it into his nostrils from Hashem to us directly. And we also have an Adamah. We also have the ground with us. Therefore, you have to be careful to what you choose. Therefore, you have to do the right thing. Sof davar hakol nishma, says Kohelet. Because that's how you become human. That's how you do the right thing. And that's how you become the right person. And so, Rabotai, to quickly review the lessons that we learned from this week's Parsha. The first lesson being, always do everything you can, as much as you can, even if you can't get it full way. Why? Because once you start doing it with bitachon in Hashem, you'll be able to do the impossible, because that's a Jew. They are the supernatural. The whole world knows it. Then we have the lesson, when a person goes through troubles and difficulties, that Hashem sometimes gives us them so we'd be able to understand others and help others out. How many organizations and gemachs and other type of organizations, B'nai Olam, and these happen from people who had trouble themselves. They weren't able to have children. They made an organization to help other people have children. This is what it is. Suffering is to help others. And then our third and final lesson is that without the Torah, without the Musar, without our Chachamim guiding us, we're simply donkeys. Donkeys who, if they veer off the path, are probably saw something to eat and they want to eat it. But if we're become people, then we're able to stand on the greatest of heights, listen to Hashem, and do the impossible. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us all with all the berachot. May we take these lessons and apply them. And also, I would like to, if you're in the Farako area, I definitely want to invite everybody to the Kiddush we're making for our newborn daughter. We're naming her and making the Kiddush this Shabbos. And Beit Knesset Birkat Eliyahu, 2732 Tammy Drive in Farako, New York. And wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom.